They say some lives end quietly, like a candle running out of wax. And then they say there are other lives that don't really end at all. They simply fade from sight, like a flame returning to the fire it came from. Adi Shankaracharya belongs to that rare second kind. His arrival into this world is wrapped in legend, poetry, and divine symbolism. But his departure is even more mysterious. It is wrapped in silence, in snow, in thin Himalayan air, in that subtle fragrance that true seekers seem to leave behind when they step beyond the visible world. To understand how Adi Shankaracharya died, we first have to understand how he lived, because his death was not separate from his life. It was its natural conclusion. Shankara did not live like an ordinary human being. He lived like a force of nature, like a storm that appears suddenly, transforms everything it touches, and then disappears before anyone can fully grasp what just happened. Tradition tells us that by the age of 8, he was already questioning interpretations of sacred texts that most people would not dare to question in an entire lifetime. By 12, he was teaching scholars who were 3 times his age. By 16, he had written philosophical works so profound that even today they remain central to Indian thought. And before he reached 32, he had walked across the Indian subcontinent multiple times, debated kings and sages, revived forgotten monasteries, reawakened the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, and established 4 great mathas in the 4 corners of India. Those institutions still stand today, like silent witnesses to a presence that once moved through a very fragile human body. When someone lives like that, their death cannot be ordinary. The body may fall, but something else continues. Something that does not fit neatly into dates, places, or records. That is why Shankara's death feels less like an ending and more like an event outside of time. The oldest accounts tell us that when Shankara felt the work of this body was complete, he began walking toward the Himalayas. He did not wait for old age. He did not wait for sickness. He did not wait for weakness. He left while his body was still strong, his mind still sharp, his presence still radiant. It was as if he was saying, "When the lamp has given its fullest light, it should be withdrawn before it begins to flicker." Imagine him during this final journey, young, barely 32, walking with calm certainty, carrying nothing but a staff, simple robes, and a mind sharper than lightning. His disciples followed him, confused and distressed. They begged him to stay. Kings sent messages asking him to return. Monks waited along distant paths, hoping to catch one last glimpse of the man who had shaken the foundations of Indian philosophy. But Shankara did not turn back. Something was calling him from the mountains. The Himalayas have always been more than mountains. They are not just rock and snow. They are a threshold, a doorway between the visible and the invisible, between form and formlessness. And Shankara, who had spent his life pointing beyond form, felt that doorway opening. As he approached Kedarnath, those walking beside him noticed a strange stillness in the air. The wind seemed quieter, the atmosphere heavier yet peaceful. It was as if the mountains themselves recognized a returning presence. Near the temple was a cave, one Shankara had visited before during his wanderings. But this time was different. This time, he did not enter as a pilgrim, not as a teacher, not as a monk. He entered as someone preparing to lay down the final garment, the body itself. The disciples waited outside the cave. Hours passed. They reported feeling something they could not explain. A subtle vibration, a gentle trembling in the air, almost as if the cave itself was alive, breathing, aware. Inside, Shankara is said to have sat in deep meditation, cross-legged, spine erect, face calm, breath slowing, awareness withdrawing from the outer world and turning inward completely. According to this account, he did not die in the way most people understand death. Death usually involves struggle, resistance, a body clinging to life. Shankara did not cling. He simply let go, like a leaf releasing itself from a branch, like a feather carried away by the breeze. His death, if it can even be called that, was not an event. It was a disappearance, a dissolving, a return. But this is only one version of the story. Another strong tradition insists that Shankara did not leave his body at Kedarnath at all. According to this account, he traveled south to Kanchipuram, the city of golden temples and ancient spiritual power. This city is deeply associated with the worship of the Divine Mother, especially the goddess Kamakshi. They say Shankara entered the Kamakshi temple, circumambulated the sanctum one final time, and then sat down in lotus posture. There, in full awareness, he withdrew his life energy upward. It rose through the spine, through the subtle centers, and exited through the crown of the head, like a flame traveling up a wick and then gently going out. They say his body did not collapse. It remained seated, serene, radiant, as if still meditating. And who is to say which story is correct? For beings like Shankara, even multiple endings are possible. His life itself was so vast, so untamed by logic, that it could hold more than one conclusion. When someone lives beyond ordinary identity, even death does not follow a single script. But perhaps the most mysterious version of all does not come from the north or the south. It comes from wandering ascetics and oral traditions of central India. They suggest something even more extraordinary. According to them, Shankara's body had already become unnecessary long before the day he finally left it. They speak of an ancient yogic mastery known as parakaya pravesha, the ability to enter another body. One story claims that Shankara temporarily left his own body to enter the body of a deceased king in order to participate in a philosophical debate. He later returned. But after this event, the body was never quite the same. It became more like a garment than an identity, useful but not essential. If such stories hold even symbolic truth, then what we call Shankara's death was simply the final dropping of a costume. The role was complete. The message delivered. The flame of Advaita had been rekindled across the land. Why stay longer? For what purpose? For whom? Shankara lived like a messenger. And a messenger does not linger once the message has been delivered. Now imagine the final moment, whichever version you choose to believe. A young man of 32, carrying the wisdom of an ancient universe. A man who debated kings yet remained untouched by power. Who challenged scholars yet carried the innocence of a child. Who saw illusion everywhere, yet laughed with the joy of someone utterly free. Imagine him sitting in silence. No fear, no resistance, no longing, just clarity. A clarity so pure that even death could not cast a shadow on it. In that silence, The breath grows subtle. The senses withdraw, not in pain, but in fulfillment, as if a perfect circle has quietly closed. In such a moment, death becomes something else entirely. It becomes an art. Most people die because the body fails, because something breaks down. But Shankara's departure was deliberate, conscious, graceful, just like his life. His awareness remained razor sharp to the very end. His heart was free from attachment. His mind had already dissolved into the infinity he spoke of so often. When he left the body, he was not dying. He was returning. Some disciples wept. Some were stunned. Some refused to believe it. How could a presence so powerful vanish in a single moment? How could a voice that awakened thousands suddenly fall silent? But others understood. They felt something lingering in the air, something subtle, something beyond sight and sound. They knew his presence had not disappeared. It had only changed form. The mountains say he became wind. The rivers say he became flow. The forests say he became echo. And those who meditate deeply say that sometimes, in moments of absolute stillness, they hear a whisper that says, "You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are boundless." That whisper carries the same resonance Shankara carried in his final breath. Those who die consciously do not leave behind graves. They leave behind pathways in human awareness, trails that cannot be erased, trails that do not belong to any one religion, sect, or geography, trails that simply point inward. And this is the real mystery of Shankara's death. He left the world in such a way that the world did not know where to place him. Was he in Kedarnath? Was he in Kanchipuram? Did he die physically? Did he transcend the body? Did he dissolve into light? The confusion is not accidental. It is intentional, because for beings like Shankara, even death becomes a teaching. His disappearance is his final commentary. His absence is his last scripture. His vanishing is his ultimate lesson. The one who knows the truth is never born and never dies. His life reads like a myth. His death is an even greater one. But both myths point towards something that words cannot fully capture. Something vast. Something silent. Something eternal. Shankara died as he lived, in freedom. Not bound by age. Not bound by disease. Not bound by destiny. He chose his moment. He chose his place. He chose his exit. And that choice is the signature of a liberated consciousness. If you listen closely, you can still feel it, because the story of his death is not really a story at all. It is an invitation to discover within yourself that same space beyond birth and death, that same openness where even leaving the world feels like a celebration. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all.